The second Pasio Academy event is here, and with that comes a new free unit that is Florian and Lechonk. In this video, we're going to cover some grid options for Lechonk, and this will be overall an extension of the previous guide. The last guide I made was much more focused for free-to-play players. I didn't have any units that I pulled from the scout banners, so if you're free-to-play, I highly recommend you go back and watch that video first, because you'll get to see how I try to focus my resources into building Rosa into a niche unit, something that can actually be useful using limited resources. But what's become clear to me is that by building a good unit during an academy event, so for example building this Rosa and dealing here to have as good stats as possible actually helps you in future events, because even old academy units like this Rosa and dealing in new events have a better multiplier than old units. So it would be wise for you to try and make good academy units, the free ones that you get. And that's what this video is about, trying to make as good a Florian as possible. This time I'm not as much free to play. As you can see, I've got Morty and Typhlosion, as well as Ray and Braviary, both giving me slightly better multipliers. So I'm expecting to fill a lot more of the grid than the last time when we ran with Rosa and dealing. While the story itself is a little different each time with a new academy event, most of the stages are about the same. Although for some stages the characters have been replaced, but again the rewards are pretty much the same. There's not really any progression difference between the old and the new event. You are still trying to maximize how many orbs you get, but at the right ratios. That means just like last time with my beginner tutorial, it's important, or most important, you first figure out what kind of build you want. I recommend using Poma tools in order to see what kind of build you should be aiming for, so that you know approximately what ratio of orbs that you need. And like last time, yellow and red orbs seem to be the most needed in my opinion. I would highly recommend you try and complete as much of this upper part of the grid as possible, the red and yellow orb grid, because that's where you'll get Paldea Circle, here and here. Circles are a niche that not many units have, so it's important to try and cover that niche if you haven't got any circle units. But otherwise, Lechonk is a fairly good support unit. It has a lot of defensive and healing abilities. It can prevent all stat drops with Impervious and prevent all crits with Vigilance. It also has a niche of reducing normal type rebuff, which I don't think will be used often, but it's still better to have than not. It's not common to get a normal type rebuff. And being able to apply endurance to your entire team while taking less damage and automatically healing itself and having flinch, and also some debuffing. I have a feeling most academy units will need this upper part of the grid completed, and this largely applied to Rosa and dealing as well. So in order to maximize that, you'll need 1660 red orbs and 1100 yellow orbs. Now last time around I tried to have one less trainer orb so that I can focus my materials on other stuff, but because I've got better multipliers this time because of a scout unit from pulling Morty and Typhlosion, I will be trying for runs where I get all 3 trainer orbs, meaning I'll be able to choose 3 moves out of these 8 that you can pick from. Now in terms of grid recommendations, I think the best option here, and it doesn't really make sense, but just bear with me, is Hyper Voice, because Hyper Voice is able to do special attack down and attack down. And it's an AoE attack, meaning that all of your opponents will get this debuff. So being able to reduce attack and special attack, by the way, attack actually goes down 2 per turn. On 3 opponents, that's quite a lot of debuffing. And unfortunately, it doesn't really make sense because while Lechonk is a normal type unit, it is more of a physical attacker because its sync move is physical. So having a special attack, yes, it doesn't make as much sense. You would need to buff both its attack and special attack if you're trying to use Lechonk to do damage. But to me, Lechonk is more of a support type anyway, so I think I'm okay having it just doing debuffing. The only thing I found that clash was the fact that Lechonk also has Terrify 2, which also does debuffing on attack, meaning you will be over debuffing the attack stats of your opponents. It's not a problem, it might just feel a little wasteful because of using orbs to reduce the opponent's attack, when you could spend those orbs on something else, since Terrify 2 already does a bit of the attack reduction. Now I did consider another option is to go down the Zen Headbutt pathway because it does defense reduction with defense crush, but the defense crush is not guaranteed, it's only a 30% chance. And it's not AoE, it's not all 3 opponents. And yes, aggravation is actually really good, but if you're using Zen Headbutt, that means you might not be using Tackle, which by the way, if you're going for the upper part of the grid, has staggering 3, meaning Tackle has a 40% chance to flinch anyway. So spending orbs on aggravation also feels a bit wasteful. Now if you were focusing more of an attacking build for Lechonk, then you might need to go for Play Rough. Unfortunately, Play Rough's debuffing is on reducing your opponent's attack, which doesn't really stack that well unless you also have Defense Crush, but again that's only 30% and it's not all of your opponents. So Lechonk for attacking doesn't seem to make much sense, and there's not really any multipliers, leaving Lechonk with probably just focusing on supporting your team by buffing their stats or healing them. If you're looking for attack buffs, it's in the top right of the grid, but I feel like in this day and age, there's so many good units for support buffing on the offensive anyway, like X attack all just isn't really cutting it, even if you get all the way to the end for crit up. Most good powerful units already have their own crit or attack buffs anyway. For newer players, I would suggest going down this pathway because that's a lot of defensive stats. And combine that with good healing in the top left with Potion, this unit will last you a long time. The bottom left is similar to the bottom right, except it has a bit more speed but less defenses. So to simplify it for you guys, my recommendation for a grid would be something like this. And of course, whatever blue orbs you get, just try and fill it up as much as possible like this. But your focus will be getting the right ratios of red, yellow and green orbs. So in my case, it'll be something like 1600 red orbs, 1000 green orbs and about 1800 yellow orbs. I'll be picking stages that help me achieve that result. This time I've got some new tips for you guys. As you saw, I'm looking for stages that have the most yellow and red orbs. But I'm going to try and not compromise my green, blue orbs either. So I'm looking for stages with 3 different types of orbs. Usually they give the most amount in terms of the battle stages. Now I've already completed the academy 1 time, so this will be my 2nd run. And a reminder not to spend any of your tickets on the free unit because you get them by completing the academy. You can complete it 5 times to get enough to make your EX unit. I will be showing you guys an example of how I run the academy now. But before we even start, this is a new tip. Have a look at this first stage. There's nothing really that I want in any of these stages. Even the trainer orb forces me to get some blue orbs. Now normally I would consider skipping Kukui to try and get something else, another stage with more orbs, so that maybe when he comes back he'll give me a different colored orb. But since this is the first stage, what I can actually do is click on history and simply reset. You can reset the very first stage until you get a good beginning. And this is looking much better. Kukui this time has come with yellow orbs, which I do need a fair amount of. So that's where I'm going to start. So after completing that stage, I got 252 yellow orbs because of the 90 times the multiplier effect. That's how much I get. Now bear in mind that while this is the goal, I do get 450 yellow orbs with the midterm exams, and also for the green, red and blue orbs I will get 300 of each with the final exams. So when doing the stages, take that away in order to do your calculations. You can also use the re-rolling tactic when you get to about round 11, because at that point you'll know whether you're going to have enough of the orbs that you need in order to consider it whether it's even worth finishing the final exams. Because you'll be able to guess from your map whether you're going to get enough of your final rewards, since you already know what the final exams give you, and if in that run you're not going to get what you need, then you would quit and start again. Of course, don't do this for your first 5 runs because you want to get those Lechonk gold tickets. But to be honest, the most important thing isn't how well you plan this out. The most important thing for any run is getting lucky and meeting this guy. Blue Special Training give you 1600 orbs for just 1 run, and it doesn't cost you any stamina. There's a 1% chance of blue showing up and he will give you 400 of each of the 4 different types of orbs, which is a lot. This is the most any stage will ever give you. with the exception of Professor Oak, but Professor Oak has a risk of only giving you 30 of each as opposed to 400. Professor Oak though would still be worth going for even though it risks 30 orbs of each, because every time you see blue or oak, basically you have a chance of having that run be your best run. It's all about having one run that is your best run. No point having a lot of mediocre runs when you could have one really good one. And this is where it's at. Unfortunately, only 1% chance for blue to appear and 1% chance for Professor Oak to appear. But if you happen to meet them, that might be your best run. Now, some people like this stage. These are the progressive stages. They have the little sparkly thing on them. Some stages have this sparkly thing suggesting that it's a bit more interesting than other stages. The reason it's sparkly, even though the initial amount of orbs is quite low with only 20 each with Evelyn, when compared to a normal 3 orb stage like this one here that gives you 40 of each orb, is because if you battle Evelyn, you'll be able to then battle the subsequent campaign stages 2, 3, and 4, which give you progressively more orbs. The second time you see it will be 40 of each orb, and then 60 of each orb, and then 80 of each orb, which averages to give you 50 orbs of each color, but it only picks 3 colors of 4 each time, and it is set. There are several problems with this though. One is that red orbs are overall the least amount that's given if you do all 4 of this progressive battle. Yellow orbs being the most, because yellow orbs are 40, 60, and 80, red is 20, 40, and 60. And the other issue is if you don't manage to see the final campaign, the last stage, before the finals hit, then you simply earned less orbs than if you had done just one of these normal stages that give you 120 or 40 of each orb. Because the average of these progressive battles are a lot worse if you can't get the final stage in. Or perhaps that final stage is competing with something else that's really good on the map. What do you do if it happens to be at the same time as the 4th of the progressive battles, blue shows up, or a story mode shows up, or something else that also gives you a lot of orbs? Also, you have much less control of which type of orbs you get, comparing with knowing exactly what you get with these types of stages. So I prefer the flexibility of doing these stages over these stages, but if you do decide to do one of these progressive stages, you gotta start them early to give you the most chances of completing the entire progression. And we do now have complete lists of all of the look around, break time interaction, or the question mark stages to know exactly what they give you. So for example, Sonya will give you either 150, 300, or 400 orbs, but Sonya does guarantee yellow orbs. These numbers are available on my Discord, but someone's actually put together a very neat Google sheet, which I'll leave a link in the description below, that will list all of the stages and orbs for you. Now, anytime you see one of these question mark stages, check these numbers and see if the highest number is a good amount. And I do recommend only looking at the highest number. For example, if you're looking at N can give you up to 600 orbs. And that's what's important. Once again, it's all about the best run. It's not about the average run. If you happen to get the 600 from N, then that could potentially be your best run. Don't worry too much that the average for these runs is about 300 to 400. We don't care about the average, we just want to make sure the highest possible number is achieved at some point during one of your runs. This concept applies even to whales, because even the average 120 orb stage like this one here, even if you've got all the multipliers, only gives you 420 orbs. Compared to 600 definitely wins. Of course, as long as it's the right type of orb that you need. And so let's continue this run. Something I did notice is that with the new stages, so this Morty one for example, even though the orbs rewards are about the same, they seem to be more difficult. I've actually had a few failed runs, and this is my 3rd stage. Now I see Nanu here, and I know that Nanu can give me up to 400 red orbs. Alternatively, I could go for one of these other stages. I do need red and yellow, so this one's looking quite good. Now 120 orbs times 2.8, which is my multiplier, is 336. Which happens to be less than the maximum that Nanu can give me. Yes, they're slightly different orbs, but I do need a lot of red. So while it's safer to go for this battle stage, I'm actually going to go for Nanu, because if I fail, well, maybe I'll just consider restarting anyway. And the great thing about Nanu, one of these break time stages is that, well, they don't cost me anything. They don't cost any stamina. It's just a matter of luck. So let's see if I can get 400 orbs. And oh, I did. Nice. So it's not looking too bad so far. Hoping to see blue and oak. Now, if you didn't know, blue and oak cannot appear until after the midterm. So you can't just re-roll your first stage infinitely until you see blue. Now, red is actually quite good as well, providing you with 150 yellow orbs, which is more than the 120 of those standard 3 orb stages. Of course, you're going to put the multiplier on top of that as well. Since this is a battle stage, multipliers don't apply to the look around or the story stages. And 150 times my multiplier, which is 2.8, is definitely higher than 300. So right now I'm thinking I'll go for the Origin Trio. And so that's what I did. I defeated red and got my 420 yellow orbs. Once again, Iono gives red orbs, which I do like and I need a lot of. Unfortunately, Iono has a chance of giving me only 30 orbs, so it's either 450 or it's 30. So hopefully I get 450. Nice. So this is turning out to be quite a good run. If I happen to get blue this run, then I'm pretty much done. I would be well and truly over the requirements that I need. Now, I do recommend actually upgrading your grid properly this time around. Last time I said that if you just go for recommended, it should be more than enough to clear the academy. Unfortunately, some of the stages are actually relatively strong, so if you have the correct build, it will help you a long way. Thankfully, in this case, X attack all actually makes sense because Lechonk is a physical attacker with its sync move. So that's what we'll go for. So now that I've completed my midterms, what I normally do at this point is actually remove all of my orbs from the grid so I can see how many I've got and what else I need to increase in order to get my required amount. So these are my numbers right now. I still need to raise my yellow. I am looking for 1700 yellow orbs and I need to raise my red and green as well. Yellow, I'm not going to get any more from the final exams, but I will get 300 of each of these. So just take that into account. Now, if I'm hoping to see blue at some point, I can probably slow down on the red orbs. So I probably don't need to hit Nano again. But I could use a bit more of each of the other orbs. I'm going to go for Gita in this time around to start building on some green orbs as well. And same logic here, I need to build a bit more of the green and yellow, so this stage also makes sense to me. Lily also looked quite good. I would have gone for Lily had I not hoped to see blue. Unfortunately, blue is quite rare. I've actually only ever seen blue one time. So with a 1% spawn rate, most runs wouldn't be your best run. But if I happen to see blue, then it would be my best run, so I want to be planning ahead for that. Okay, now this is actually quite a good one as well. Yellow orbs, I do need that, and I happen to also need trainer orb this time around. Definitely not a good time to do progressive stages, not that I recommend doing the Team Rocket ones anyway, but being so close to the end now, if you were to do a progressive stage, you would just overall get less orbs than you would have otherwise had you completed the progressive ones fully. Okay, we're getting really close to the end now, and unfortunately still no blue in sight, so this probably won't be my best run. I still need about 200 yellow orbs, about 400 more red orbs before the finals, and about 200 more green orbs. This time I'll go with Iris. It's just really by luck at this point. I mean, I could have gone for the other 3 orb stage as well, but I can't really predict what's coming next, so I'll just have to deal with it as it comes. And now my last chance to see blue, and if not, it probably won't be my best run. It wasn't too bad, but it probably won't be my best run. And I do not see blue. I'm actually about 50 orbs off with the yellow and still quite a big chunk off these other ones. There's no point of completing the yellow if I don't have enough of these anyway. It's all about the right ratio of orbs. So I'm actually going to skip on the yellow and go for this stage. Now, if this is not my first 5 run where I get the gold tickets to upgrade my Lechonk, I probably would just go to history and just restart this stage because, well, I'm not going to get my best run here anyway. And so this pretty much marks the end of my second run for the Pasio Academy. Make sure you upgrade your grid before taking on the final exam, because with the exams you can only do it once. If you fail, then, well, you pretty much don't get anything. So do consider gridding properly. I'm going to try the recommended option to see if I can beat Glacier. I think my first run I did beat her with just the recommended grid. Okay, this is not looking too good. I'm going to try and flinch Glacier, otherwise I might die, and I'm going to try and rush it with just sync moves. Oof, I failed. Yes, so don't do this. If you fail, well, at least I still get the tickets, but if you fail and this is your best run, you just lost 900 orbs. So make sure you grid properly. You can always change the grid afterwards if that's not what you want to end the academy with. And there you have it. Now, I will not exit with this grid. I'm going to keep my previous grid, which is a bit better, only because I lost the final exam in this time around. So as I said, I do feel like the stages of the second academy is a little harder than the first time we had it with Rosa and Dealing, but we do seem to get more rewards because we can actually use Rosa and Dealing, who gives you a better multiplier than other base units anyway. Thank you for watching, guys. Let me know if there's any questions in the comments section below. I'm gonna keep re-rolling until I get my best run for Lechonk.